All right, Jordan, you ready? All set? Great. Olivia, you're all set? Almost all set.
Yes.
Okay. Turn on the mic. Just all right. Okay, I think we're gonna get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's Friday. This is our COVID-19 response update, and we've got a lot to talk about today. So I'm gonna jump right in. Let me start with I wanted to share my reaction to the governor's announcement earlier this morning that he is extending his stay home, stay safe order through May 15th. And I've got three reactions to that. I wanted to go through each in a little detail. First of all, I fully support this action by the governor. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. Secondly, not only is it the right thing to do for public health, I think it's the right thing to do for the economy and for relief and recovery. And I want to talk about that a little bit. And then the final point is now the governor has made this decision. I think it really puts a focus on what I was talking about Monday night in the state of the city. We need to use this time to our advantage. We need to use this time well and get ready for when the stay-home order is lifted in mid-May. So let me just say a little bit more about each of those. First of all, I don't think there's any question, even though things are going well, relatively speaking, in Vermont right now, even though clearly the curve is quite flat and much improved over what it could have been and what we feared it would be, the levels of infection are still concerningly high. There's still enough new infections every day that we are weeks away from being able to say, it's time to come out of this. If we were to come out of this now, my sense is you would immediately see a new spike and all of the kind of progress that we have earned together over the last month since the stay-home order was put in place, or since the first of the emergency declarations were put in place. All that would be undone and would sort of be for naught. And that kind of gets me to the second point is I think we have sometimes talked about the public health restrictions being in conflict with a strong economy, and as if the public health restrictions are what is driving the economic damage that we're seeing, and that doesn't have it. That's not right. What is driving the economic damage is the virus, and the fact that this is a deadly virus, and that people are not safe if they are out and trying to live their lives normally with this virus circulating. And so the way to get back to a healthy economy is actually the same, is by addressing that, is by containing the virus much better than it is today. So this is the route to both a safer Vermont, and a Vermont where as many of our neighbors as possible are saved, and it is the route to restarting the economy and getting people back to work. And to that point, it takes me again to the third point. Even if today we were at a place where we had infections at a very low level, we wouldn't be ready today, is my sense, to lift the stay-home order. We need to develop a whole set of new capacities and new abilities at the local and state level to fight the virus, to contain the virus, detect it, isolate the virus when we do find it, to make sure that when we find one person with the virus, that doesn't develop into a new cluster. And that is going to require us to do things that we are just developing the muscles to do, just developing the capacity to do. And having another month until the stay-home order is lifted, we got to be working every day to make sure that when it does get lifted, we're ready for it. I don't want to go into more detail than that right now. We will have more to say about this next week, but I did want to share that. All right, Olivia, I think we can start with the slides here. This flows from the governor's order. Because the governor has extended the stay-home order from April 15th to May 15th, the city's going to follow suit in a number of ways. We are going to keep our buildings closed until the stay-home order is lifted. We also, and this hurts me to say this, and I'll say a little bit more about this in a second. I'm sadly, I don't think we have any choice but to also continue to extend the deadline before we can restart the meeting of boards and commissions until the stay-at-home order is lifted. I'll say more about that in a sec. And then the final bullet there is just, as always, if you're ever unsure what is the status of a city service, we're trying to keep a very detailed list of what is curtailed, what is active, how do you access it on the city's website, so you can go there. Going back to bullet number 2, why is this paying me to do this? Why do we have to do this? So first of all, I'm very appreciative for everyone who signs up to be a board member or a commissioner. This is how I got my start in city government. I was an airport commissioner for 9 years. I think the commissions add a lot of value to city decision making and help us get our policies right, help provide oversight of various activities, and really, just our real partners in managing the city in normal times. We are not in normal times, and I think the governor's extension of the stay-home order is a reminder of that. We are in a time where the work of city officials is going into saving and protecting as many of our neighbors as possible, where the work of senior officials and in many cases, employees at all levels of city government is going into both keeping people safe and getting people help, getting relief efforts in the hands of people who need it. And at a time, those things right now, the doing what needs to be done to keep people safe and get people help is in tension with us being able to put in the very substantial effort that it takes to properly staff and manage work that comes out of our boards and commissions. So I really don't see any choice but to extend this until May 15th. I know this is going to be a disappointment to some. We didn't do this lightly. We kind of looked around the state to see what other cities were doing and understand if others were, how they were handling it, and also look to the governor and the governor's orders as to where he sees us in this emergency. And I think this order today is significant. I will say this: if a commission needs to meet in order to address an emergency issue or take action that is comparably significant and time sensitive, if it can't wait, in other words, until after May 15th, we'll consider that on a case-by-case basis. We have, for example, we did allow the retirement board to meet during the emergency already because they had to make some decisions relative to investments during this emergency period, and while these markets were fluctuating, they were. So we'll continue to do that until May 15th. I thank commissioners for their understanding and collaboration as we get through this. Let's keep going, Olivia.
And Mayor, I think we have John Tracy on the phone lines here. Let me see if I can bring him in.
Okay, great. While Olivia's trying to get John Tracy, who's Senator Leahy's chief of staff here in Vermont, let me just say, to the point of getting people help, I think our approach in this emergency from the beginning, and it's going to guide our efforts throughout, is to ensure that no Burlingtonian is left behind in this emergency. During these times of crisis and uncertainty, it's very easy for people with modest resources to be particularly hurt by these emergencies and disasters. We're going to do everything we can to avoid that. And for that reason, we want to make sure that we do everything we can to get the information out to everybody about how to access federal aid. And I know our federal delegation has been doing that in lots of other ways. They had a great town meeting last night, but we wanted to use this platform to make sure Burlingtonians who are following these briefings get the information directly as well. And were we able to get John on the line, Olivia?
John, you should. Yes.
Great, John, welcome.
Beautiful.
Thank you for joining us. And thank you for collaborating so closely with us through this emergency.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And Burlington is doing an incredible job, and I've told the senator, so he's very happy. A news report this morning out of Politico, which was based on financial industry sources, and I've checked with VC staff today, and they've heard nothing to the contrary. It appears that the Treasury Department will start the process today to start getting out the economic impact payments that Americans would receive. The first step today, where Treasury will reach out to banks to make sure they have the information they need for direct deposits, to make sure they have the routing numbers, and they'll do that by a transmission today. On Monday, it's expected the IRS will begin processing payments, and direct deposit holders should begin to see their checks arrive this coming Wednesday. The IRS is working to get paper checks out to the approximately 100 million Americans who don't have direct deposit. They're going to start that the first week of May, and they expect to send about 5 million checks a week for about 20 weeks. The IRS on April 17th said they're going to have an online application called Get My Payment, which will allow taxpayers to submit their direct deposit information to the IRS if they didn't provide that when they provided their taxes. And then there's a IRS notification today, a non-filers tool for people who don't normally file a tax return or didn't in 2018 and 2019. And it allows them to submit basic information to their IRS so they can get a payment to themselves. The only question we still do have is what happens to people who don't have an established relationship with a bank or a lending institution, and how are we going to deal? Banks legitimately are concerned about fraud and things like that. So that's one of the things that remains to be worked out, as to how we make sure that those individuals are able to access their funds once they get a check. So that was the update.
John, great. Thank you. That's really encouraging to hear. And I just want to amplify one of those points there. So people who already have direct deposits set up with the IRS as a function of how you have filed your taxes in the past, you should be all set, right, John? And when the IRS goes to make these direct payments to qualifying Americans, which is the great majority of Americans, that money will go straight into your account, right?
Correct. Now, if you don't already, if you file electronically, they're going to have that information for your routing numbers and stuff for the direct deposit they've normally been doing.
Great.
If you have filed but haven't provided that information, that's where the Get My Payment web tool that's coming up April 17th will allow people to get that information, the routing numbers and stuff, and they'll get their checks directly deposited.
Great. So April 17th is what? It's a week from today. It's next Friday, and we'll do everything we can here in Burlington to make sure Burlingtonians who need this, which is a lot of Burlingtonians, I assume, right? Because you're saying it's about 100 million taxpayers.
Across the country, yeah.
300 million or so don't have direct deposit, and those that right now they would have to be waiting for paper checks. People can get their help faster if they sign up on this new web tool next Friday, is what you're saying, right?
Correct.
Great. So we'll do everything we can to push that information out here in Burlington as soon as it's live. And thank you also for thinking of that last set of people who don't have an established bank account and how they get helped. And let us know how we can, if there's anything we can do at the local level to help those people access this as well.
I would imagine on the local level, come up with some creative ideas. So you guys, you're set up to do a great job. So thank you. And some other good news is the state of Vermont received $54 million today from the provider relief funds, which will help the healthcare system in Vermont get through this crisis. So we're getting there.
Excellent. John, we were going to talk about the Paycheck Protection Program a little bit more too, but do you need to run or do you want to stick around for that?
No, I'll stick around. Listen, thanks.
Okay.
I'll go mute me again and unmute me if you need me.
All right, great. So Olivia, let's go. We're going to talk next to the Paycheck Protection Program. We talked about it earlier this week. And I just wanted to come back to it and emphasize again, going into the weekend, the opportunity that this potentially presents to small Burlington businesses, which, and the way small is defined here is it's anything under 500 employees. And I even actually heard some commentary that that's 500 employees at any location. So you can be a pretty sizable organization and still qualify for this. So most Burlington businesses and nonprofits and sole proprietorships that have been impacted by COVID-19 have the potential to benefit from this program. Now, I wanted to come back and talk about this again because we've been hearing some questions and concerns about whether people should apply, and people have heard the question: should we be applying even though we're still under the stay-home order? How does it make sense that I should go out and hire back my employees, which is what this program encourages you to do? And let me recap that. Basically, this program says you can get a loan up to $10 million in loans from the Small Business Administration. And then if you keep your payroll levels through the period, through 8-week period, starting 10 days after your loan has been approved. I hope I've got that all exactly right. If you keep your payroll with as many people on and at the pre-COVID disaster levels, you can have that loan entirely forgiven. It can essentially convert from being a loan to a federal infusion of non-taxable dollars into your organization. Now, some people have had a hard time squaring this. They say, okay, well, why should I've laid employees off, or I've furloughed employees because there's no work for them to do right now. The governor has said you can't work. We're not an essential business. They can't do their work from home. Why should I be hiring them back now? Here's the idea. The program is intended for you to hire them back now and keep them on for this 8-week period so that when the order is lifted, and it will be lifted in May 15th is what the governor is projecting now. It could change, of course, but that from my sense of the science and what other people are saying, I think there's a good chance there will be lifting on that schedule. And the idea is, as the economy gets turned back on, instead of losing weeks or months more, having to go through the process of onboarding people again, getting people hired, getting the paperwork done, getting them set up with their benefits, all those processes that are time consuming and that go into the hiring, that already is done, and that your business is ready to turn back on and proceed, almost as if, hopefully as if as close to possible that this didn't happen. That's the thinking. So don't not do this because you can't bring your employees into work right now. It is important that you understand, if you take on this debt, you've got to understand the rules. The forgiveness is tied to you following the rules. And a couple of the highlights of the rules here: 75% of the loan has to be spent on payroll, 25% can be spent on rent or utilities. Payroll must be brought up to pre-COVID levels by June 30th, and all money must be spent within 8 weeks of receipt. If you can't meet those provisions, this turns into a 2-year loan at quite a low interest rate, or at least some part of it does. Obviously that's a very quick summary. If you want to get into more of the details, contact the RRC. But I do want to just stress, and this goes to I am worried that let's be clear about this. This is a race. If you get your paperwork in and your loan approved, you can get this benefit until the money runs out. And this money is almost certainly going to run out. Hopefully Congress is going to be successful at taking this from $350 billion to there's talk of adding another $250 billion. No one knows. I think there's good reason to think if you get your paperwork in now, you're not too late, but that could end soon. So CEDO and the RRC is standing by and ready to help any business that doesn't really know how to do this, is confused by some element of the application. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from you at those contact numbers. If you have friends who you think might not be aware of this, they've just started up a business, they don't have banking relationships, they don't know how to do this, tell them to call. the recovery center, and we're going to do everything we can to get as many Burlington businesses as we can into line, qualified, and receiving this benefit. And it's really, if we succeed at this, I think Burlington's going to bounce back faster than we will if we miss this opportunity. All right. So that's, John, did you want to say anything more on that? Any update on the possibility of an expansion of this program and the other things that the senator's fighting for to add to the relief package?
Well, we'll see what happens with the next package. As we shared in the briefing this morning, the Republicans put forth a $250 billion package yesterday, but the Democrats wanted to include more money for hospitals, to increase the SNAP benefit for individuals and get more money to states that really need it. So they're still on the drawing board. Senator Leahy had a phone conversation with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin today to try to keep the conversations going. And what was brought up this morning as well in the briefing, and we have heard well, are the concerns that businesses have about the time period when you can have the employees counted, like for restaurants, if they open later and it runs beyond the deadline, how's that going to work out? So there are a few adjustments that we will try to get in the next package. We're not sure when that's going to take place, but the conversations are ongoing. So the input we're getting from local businesses, we're going to try to insert, the senator will, to improve the bill overall. So we'll see. There's other stuff too about, on the federal level, increasing wages for essential employees, whether it's grocery store clerks or healthcare providers. People are out there having to work, to have some kind of incentive bonus for them to reward them for the work they're doing. So we'll see.
Well, John, our appreciation to the senator for fighting those fights. I think every one of those on the list is critical and has not been sufficiently addressed in the relief packages so far. So thank you for looking out for states and municipalities. We're going to need some help before this is all done. Sure. And certainly, I think this is surprising to people. They hear the hospitals are busier than ever. Why do the hospitals need help? Well, the way our healthcare system works, they're not getting paid for the work that they're doing right now in many, many cases. And in fact, the stuff the hospitals do get compensation for, the elected procedures, have all been canceled. So I appreciate that the way in which the senator is fighting for Vermonters, John.
Well, he'll keep at it. Thanks.
All right. Great. Okay, we got another, I think, important announcement. One that I mentioned in the State of the City address on Monday. We've got more details to talk about now. This is the Trusted Community Voices program. And I forget, Olivia, do we have anyone else on the line to talk about this, or should I just?
We do. We do have Pitt here.
Okay. All right. Great. So Pitt, we'll go to Pitt in a second. Let me just tee it up and say this. One of the great things about Burlington is that we are a place that for decades has welcomed people from around the world to make their home in Burlington. Refugees fleeing from some of the most terrible humanitarian crises from around the world. Burlington has been a place where people have been able to come and make a new life, and it's made us a far better city as a result. It's been the single biggest force in making us a more diverse place and enriching us in countless ways. We, for some time as city government, have been working to serve those communities better. It's one thing to welcome people here. It's another thing to really completely value these communities, make sure that they are heard and understood, and that we are doing everything we can as a city government to help those communities thrive. And we've done that. We've tried to do that in a number of ways. We have been putting some more effort into translation of materials. We've done a whole number of things, but the point is this: like, we knew as this crisis started to evolve that we really were going to need to expand these services in this emergency, given that this is an emergency that depends on everyone understanding what's going on, everyone understanding the public health direction and guidance that come in is coming from the government, everyone following that, that it's not just the health of those communities that is impacted by that understanding, that all of us, our collective health is impacted by everyone knowing what they should about this terrible virus. We also know that we're headed into what may turn out to be the greatest economic storm since the Great Depression. And as we've just been discussing with John Tracy from the Senator's office, the way in which people get help in a crisis is not necessarily going to be even and totally fair and equitable. We have a better chance of making sure that everyone gets the help that they need and deserve if we're communicating well with these new American communities. And so that's what the Trusted Community Voices program is set up to do. If we could see, Olivia, if you could advance to the bullets here. The point of this program is to improve the city's engagement. It's also to improve two-way communication. Part of the city being able to do its job and making sure these communities are getting what they need is to understand what's happening in those communities and getting feedback and communication. So the Trusted Community Voices program will do that. If we could keep going. This is the heart of it, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Pitt. We are going to have one individual from each of 5 different demographic groups here in Burlington that are going to be what we're calling a trusted community voice for that community. We're going to do this for the Nepalese community, Somali, Swahili, Congolese, and the Karen community. And that's the Tibetan American community. And what this will ensure is that really that we have this additional, very personal channel. We're going to find people who are real leaders and have good relations and contacts within these communities to make sure the information is getting out. Pitt, who has for years been very committed to the city's efforts to communicate and engage all sorts of Burlingtonians, but especially the New American community, is with us on the line. Pitt, thank you for helping us get this new initiative designed and launched today.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So yes, we are excited to launch this much needed program, Trusted Community Voices, and this definitely will continue to enhance and just like expand the already existing engagement work that we've been doing with these communities, and both understanding what is like the urgent needs and how to inform communities of programming and services that the city can provide. And it's really about diplomacy and bringing a bridge between communities that aren't really always represented in our public forums, so that we can be able to bring the trusted voices and the leaders to city government and be part of the communication at the table, so we can do some systemic change with them. So the 5 communities have been identified in partnership with our agency and nonprofit partners that do work with immigrant and refugee communities. And this is based on population and need. We do understand that there are other groups that aren't on here, and we definitely will still be paying attention. But this is it's a pilot program. It's new, so these are like the key communities that we are starting off with, and we'll be identifying the leaders who have already the expertise and the experience, the current work that is doing community engagement with their communities. Some of the criteria that we're looking for of the community leaders is looking at like both being versed in their country's language, their culture's language, and understanding the life experience, and also English. And then in addition, just having the professional navigations of technology, because of course during this time of COVID, we probably will be using a lot of communications through Zoom and other technological platforms. Why are we doing this again? We are doing this because it is where you had shared, Mayor, Burlington is a large resettlement city, and we do want to reach our full residents, and definitely in phase 2 of being able to make sure that people are like getting the information and also the access to building their lives is really critical that we do develop this model of engagement. So the 5 individuals, we are developing a program that they will be meeting with us on a regular during the hours, the weekly hours, and getting paid a stipend of a modest stipend. Yes, we are expecting to make sure that we as staff, the CETO staff is going to be committed to doing as much work as we can, so that we aren't developing a program that's exhausting it, like the community leaders, but also just really being able to provide a place where they can be part of the table, part of the conversation, and then also be able to be compensated for their time too. So we're excited about this program. This program was recommended by the city's 2019 equity report, and it is something that we already have been doing across the city around different series of civic engagement forums with nonprofits. CETA will be managing this program, but
you say we've been doing it before, Pitt, but don't you think, I mean, we've sort of tried to do it in an ad hoc basis before. We haven't had a commitment to comprehensively doing it and resourcing it this way in the past, is my sense, right?
Yes, this is why we're excited about just making it a formal program, because it has been an ad hoc, and it is going to be much more formalized, where it's going to be actually consistent in the community leaders we're working with, looking at the metrics and the outreach that we're doing, identifying more best practices of strategies that we can follow through with. So it will be a lot more formalized and organized than, as you said, the past ad hoc civic engagement models that we've used.
Excellent. And I guess, what I want people to understand, and I said this in the State of the City, but let me repeat it here, is my thought is, clearly this is going to be really important during this emergency. As I think this emergency is going to go on for a while, and we'll use these channels to make sure these communities are getting the emergency information they need throughout. This is an example also, I believe, of how we can emerge from this crisis an even better city, an even stronger city. Now, once we create this new capacity for communicating with our new American communities, we're not going to give it up, at least not if I can help it. We're going to find a way to find this modest. We're going to face very tough financial times ahead, but we're going to find a way to prioritize this, and it's going to be run, as noted there, by Taisha Green, our new Director of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging, who just started this Monday. And I'm really very excited about what this is going to do. I mean, Pitt, you and I both go to a lot of public forums. We go to the NPAs a lot. It is unusual to hear from these new American communities in those traditional venues, and the programs, the work that we do suffers from it. I'm really very optimistic that this is going to have a long-term positive impact on the city and its work and its programs.
Yes, I agree too. I think that it gives us an opportunity to really embrace and just really enhance the diversity that we have in expertise and take our city to the next level that it really needs to, which is really bringing more voices to the table. So I definitely think this is a good time to start. It's an urgent time, and that we should be, I'm excited to be committed to it.
All right, well, Pitt, we got a few other things we got to get to. We got to keep moving, but thank you for your work getting this important new program launched and all that you do for the city.
Thank you.
We want to circle back. We last week opened up an application for what we're calling a small business grant program. And this, again, we've talked about this a couple times. So this is money, $110,000 that the city already had from the federal government for a revolving loan program. As the scale of this economic crisis started to become clear, we got guidance and permission from the federal government to turn this into a full-on grant program, assistance program for organizations that meet eligibility requirements, which basically involve hiring, employing low and moderate income employees. So we opened up the application. I think the application closed on just Monday of this week, or maybe it was on Sunday. It was April 5th. And we're now excited to announce that the CEDO team, our RRC team, has gone through 172 applications, and we have, and we're announcing that 67 of those applications met the eligibility requirements for low and moderate income employees, and all 67 of those organizations are going to get funding. So 47 are being awarded $1,500 because they have 5 or fewer employees, and those that have a few more employees, up to 20 employees, are being awarded $2,000. We know that these are small checks in comparison to the need that these companies face in the wake of this economic storm. But we're happy it is some of the first money from the government that is going to get into people's hands. It is going out the door rapidly. The idea is to get is to get this out within a matter of days. Reminder recipients to look out for that email and get back to us by April 17th. Olivia, I'm not totally sure what that means. Are you?
In the notification emails, those emails, we need some information from recipients in order to cut the checks. So that's
Okay.
just a reminder for people who
Got it.
are one of these recipients to get back to the team.
Excellent. Yes. All right. I get it now. I did see those emails that went out from Grace Sifo, who's been one of the leaders in CEDO, along with Will Cavell, in getting all this work to happen and getting these checks out the door. The next slide is shows the 67 different small businesses that are getting this first infusion of dollars from the city. And thank you again to the CEDO team for getting this money out. Glad we're able to do something for these deserving businesses. Sorry for the ones that we weren't able to help with this round. We are going to keep working at the RRC to make sure every Burlington business that needs help gets it in the weeks and months ahead. All right. I think our last topic of the day is we wanted to give just an update on the city's and the community's response to homelessness during this COVID-19 emergency. Again, I think Burlington it's always, I've said this before, whether I'm talking to kids or adults here in Burlington, a topic that almost always comes up is what are we doing about the problem of homelessness? And I think this public health emergency has just shined a spotlight on how troubling it is that there are significant numbers of people in our community that don't have a home. How are you supposed to get through a public health epidemic that requires you to stay home when you're homeless. How are you supposed to stay healthy and safe in these shelters, which are quite crowded? And we've been trying to provide answers to that in a number of ways. We've worked with the state, and the state has shown real leadership, getting people from the homeless community who are in at-risk populations, getting them into hotels quickly using the state's hotel program. And then another important program has been to move the city's low barrier shelter out of the downtown location out to North Beach Campground, the city-owned campground. This was, from my perspective, a partnership that came together quickly and really well to serve this group. It's a partnership that involves the city providing the campsites. This is our North Beach Campground that generally during the summer hosts people in RVs from around the country. Right now, there are rental RVs there being paid for by the state that have individuals, guests from the warming shelter that are staying there, and the whole operation is being managed and coordinated and run by the nonprofit A New Place. We're really thankful for A New Place. I mean, just want to kind of recap how A New Place, how kind of we got where we are. And Olivia, do we have Kevin and Heather on the line?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So before I invite them, I'm excited they're joining us. I'm eager to hear what they have to say. I do just want to make sure everyone understands, about, what was it, August of last summer, it wasn't even clear that we would have a low barrier shelter this winter because the Community Health Center of Burlington, which had run it for the 3 previous years, found themselves in a position where they couldn't continue to operate it for the coming year. And there was a few scary weeks where it looked like this important service wasn't going to be provided at all. Into the void stepped A New Place, which had experience running shelters, but had never done anything quite like this. And in a matter of weeks, they got done what would normally take many months in terms of planning to be able to put in place the infrastructure to operate the warming shelter in November. And then in the middle of their first season, all of a sudden we were hit by COVID-19 and it wasn't possible to keep that facility safe anymore. A New Place did a great job at raising concern about that and making sure that we collectively came up with a solution. And now the solution is in place with A New Place continuing to manage this low barrier facility. My understanding is, let's hear from Kevin and Heather. How's it going?
I'll let Heather start since she's part of the boots on the ground that actually makes the magic happen there every day. If Heather's here.
Okay, I was just muted. I apologize. So things are going well. It was a huge transition for us to take our whole operations, write up some new rules, get everything set up. But some of the things that we've noticed is that we're able to keep the social distancing that was being required or asked for by the CDC and the governor and the town. And then also we've seen a decrease in the level of intoxication of our guests. So that also means a decrease in us having to use any sort of emergency services or police contact, which is awesome. And just things have really gone pretty seamlessly other than us learning how to use campers.
I imagine that must have presented some extra challenges.
Yes, considering most of us have never owned a camper.
You're living in one of them as well, Heather, out there on the campground?
I'm just doing shifts there. So we have around the clock staff there. They're 2-person shifts, and we utilize one of the campers as our office space. So I'm there only 5 days a week, and otherwise just fielding phone calls and things like that.
Great. And And my understanding is the number of guests at the campground has actually gone up a little bit since it first opened.
Yep, we started out with either 16 or 18, and assuming that our last economic services referral shows up tonight, we'll be full at 25 guests.
Wow. And were these all people who had been at the downtown facility before, or these are people that are newly homeless or were kind of becoming aware of this?
So the initial group that came in were people who were unable to be housed through the hyper vulnerable criteria with economic services because we weren't sure what was happening. So we were housing those people when we were still in the basement. Then we got another influx of people who were in hotel rooms who either were not able to maintain that hotel room or it made more sense for them to come back to us. So that was another like 3 people or so. And then the most recent intakes have been people through economic services that have really struggled to follow expectations in the hotel rooms.
Excellent. Kevin, you want to share some perspective as well?
Yeah, I think it's been really significant just how the community around us has rallied to make this possible. Because, you know, I live on North Avenue, maybe half a mile, quarter of a mile from North Beach myself. And so it's a lot of the people probably even listening to this are my neighbors. And I know that us being in North Beach campground ends up impacting their lives. And I think if there's one phrase or one mantra that's been going over in my head a lot is just, I've been really impressed with how our community has cared about the people on the fringe, and that they've really kind of adopted this mindset that what happens to one of us impacts all of us. And I think that that's really been true with this. And so I know I really do feel like, you know, that area is kind of a jewel to our neighborhood. And so I really do appreciate just the support our neighbors have shown in helping make this possible, because I know it doesn't happen without our city rallying around our homeless community right now.
Well said, Kevin. It was, I agree that the way in which people came together to make this happen has been great to watch. There was a ton of details that had to be sorted out to get your facility open and running. And it was a special moment to be there as the rain was starting to fall and as darkness was starting to fall. And finally, all the details that made it possible for your guests to move in got sorted out. The contract got signed, and it was definitely, to me, one of the bright moments in this crisis, to see that, you know, government officials and state government and local government were committed to staying late and getting it done, understanding that, you know, that public safety was at risk and this had to get resolved. So thank you to your team for being the foundation of that and making sure it happened. And thank you for continuing to operate this and make sure that this vulnerable group in our community is in a safer place, and that all of us are safer as a result, given that this group is being housed in a more safe way. I did want to remind people and explain again why that for now, at least, it is helping with the management of this facility, this campground, to have the gates closed off to traffic. People are encouraged to park at the Burlington High School and walk through Lakeview Cemetery to access North Beach at this point, or the bike path if you're looking to do that. And I think do we have one more slide, Olivia? I guess just a couple last points about homelessness during COVID-19. I want to say, and I'm not sure, like, people should understand the North Beach Campground is not the only thing being done to help homeless households during this emergency. The state Department of Children and Families is actually housing about 350 people right now in the area, using this hotel motel voucher program to ensure, again, that everyone has a roof over their head during this stay home order. And I wanted to share, I kind of referenced this briefly in the State of the City the other night, but I want to expand upon it a little bit here. This is, I think, another example of something that we've struggled to get done in this community, even though we've wanted to for a significant period of time. And now that we have made an advancement, somewhat like the community voices, trusted community voices, we got to make sure we don't go backwards. For years, I have, wanted to go beyond. I supported, first of all, I supported the low barrier shelter getting created. It had not been, there'd been much controversy over it for a long time. About 6 years ago, I came out in support of doing it in downtown Burlington. There were a lot of concerns from the business community and elsewhere about it. Those concerns have turned out to be off base. There's been virtually no problems that have been created with the broader community as a result of this low barrier shelter. What we are lacking now is a low barrier option during warm weather months. For years, we've had some money in the budget, and the city has been pushing to find a way to expand these services. Now that this facility exists, I have asked our CEDO team to find a way so that by the time the stay home order is lifted on May 15th, we have an option for people who are homeless and who need help during warm weather months. Instead of, we can't go back to the system we had before, which basically people were on their own if they didn't qualify for our other shelters. This new deadline from the governor, May 15th, gives us some clarity. And I appreciate it here too, Heather and Kevin, you guys being willing to be part of that conversation about how we do this right going forward. And so thank you again for that as well. All right. Any last thoughts, Kevin or Heather?
I just want to say thank you to your staff at the city. They've been great to work with. I mean, I think the Burlington Parks and Rec crew really deserves a shout out too. They've done a lot of work that probably goes unnoticed by most, but we couldn't have made this happen without them doing a lot of heavy lifting to get this ready. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks for saying that, Kevin. Totally agree that the parks team was awesome, moving quickly to get the campground ready for this to happen. So I think with that, any questions? No questions here do we have any questions online, Jordan?
Olivia here. Yes, we do. First question is from Aiden Quigley at VT Digger. He's wondering if the North Beach campers are now at capacity, are there any plans for additional campers or an expansion of that program?
So do you have any reaction to that, Heather or Kevin, before I speak?
Well, I think the number of campers we have on site was largely governed by the number of water and sewage hookups we have on site. So, there's 27 hookups. I think that's accurate. And so that's what governed the number of campers.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. And I have asked, the ways I've asked the CEDO team to be in touch with the state and try to nail down if we do have more people from this population, what's going to happen. Clearly, I mean, the state has been excellent about providing these motel and hotel vouchers, and that is significantly expandable. For someone who really would prefer a location like the North Beach campground location, I'm not sure we have an option at this point, but we've asked the state. We've started the process of looking at whether it's necessary to find another way to expand it.
Next question is also from Aiden. This question is there any update on the creation of a congregate care site in Chittenden County?
Right. So good question, Aiden. So here's where that is. We are told, I think this is a really important facility, I guess. So let me start there. I think this is a facility that needs to be created for us to have confidence that people who test positive for COVID-19 but are not sick enough that they need to be hospitalized, that there's a place for them to go and to get the proper care, to get the proper support, and for them to be able to isolate themselves properly so that they don't put others at risk. We have many people who live in Burlington in settings that are not nursing homes, but they are places where there are many older people living. There are many people with, they are group facilities that have dozens or in some cases even hundreds of people living within the same facility. And many, in some cases, these are older households and people that are, really at risk, most at risk in this virus. And so we've been in communication with the state almost every day about their plans to get this facility created. What the latest we're told by the state is this congregate care facility will be up and operational next week. And further, they have a way of supporting now individuals who need a place to go to properly isolate and can't properly isolate at home. So this is really important. I'm haunted by the idea that we need to do everything we can to make sure that when we become aware that someone is carrying COVID-19, that we do everything we can to properly isolate them, keep them safe and supported, and make sure that they don't spread the infection to others. We know that this, the nature of this virus is that it spreads in clusters, and once it gets into a facility, I mean, we've just seen it again and again, even here in Vermont, right? We've seen what's happened at Birchwood, we've seen what's happened at BHR, now we see what's happening in a correctional facility. It is once a virus gets into one of these facilities, it can really end up impacting a lot of people, and that's what this congregate care facility. That's why it's so important. That's why it's really important that it will be open very soon, and that the state has a plan to support these people now. Anything else, Olivia?
One more. Next question is from Cliff Cooper at the North Avenue News. He is wondering about the property tax extension plan, and if taxes are extended by 2 months, does that mean that double the property taxes would be due in August?
Great, Cliff. Yeah, so this is a question about the plan that was approved almost unanimously by the council on Monday. And what this plan, so here's how it works so far, and then let me speak, there are elements of it that over the coming months we're going to continue to work on, and let me speak to that too. So basically the council has approved us waiving penalties and interest on the June 12th payment, for property taxpayers that meet several conditions. One, that they have been negatively impacted by this COVID-19 emergency. We have several definitions for what constitutes being negatively impacted. So that's kind of the core of it. And basically we're saying for people who meet those requirements, you don't need to make your June payment until August. At that point right now, yes, people should understand that all we have approved so far is just that you would still owe that second payment in August. And it would be a double payment that is due there. We are, as months away, of course, August, about 4 months away. And what we are doing now is exploring whether the city can do anything further, understanding that many taxpayers in the wake of this economic recession are going to have trouble making a double payment. We're exploring what else the city can do. For now, people have additional time. You have additional time to sort out your finances, to secure some of these federal funds, which are going to take a while to get here, and take whatever other steps can help rearrange your finances so you can get back on track. If we can do more, we will, and we're looking at doing more. Last thing I just want to always point out about this program, if you are a property taxpayer and you apply for this benefit, and there will be an application process, and we will have an application up shortly, well in advance of the June 12th deadline. If you do apply, you will be required to basically pass on comparable benefits to any residential or commercial tenants that are on the property that's getting that property tax benefit. So you will not be able to charge your tenants late fees or move towards eviction while a property owner themselves is getting this benefit from the city. So that's where that stands right now, Cliff. Thanks for your interest in that. More details to come soon.
And we do have one more question from Courtney Lambton at 7 Days. Can you speak to where the recovery center will be located?
So this, I just want to make sure we're all speaking the same terms here, right? So recovery, we got all sorts of recovery centers, of course. The pre-COVID recovery center, we had like the Turning Point is a recovery center. Then we've created this resource and recovery center, which is part of our city effort to get Burlingtonians help. I believe the question is about the COVID-19 recovery center, which is this congregate care facility where people could go to isolate if they can't return to their homes for isolation. And that location is, the state is, my understanding, finalizing a location that will be here in Chittenden County, quite close to, oh, okay, all right. Jordan is giving me the signal in the room that it is okay to say it will be the Holiday Inn right here in South Burlington, close to the hospital. One of the reasons that it's important, I felt it's important that it be close to the hospital, and I think others have agreed with this, is that there will be people, there'll be a range of people here, some who have very few symptoms but are contagious and thus can't go home because they could spread the virus to others. There will be, our anticipation is, others who are showing symptoms. They are not symptoms that are so great that they need to be hospitalized, but we do know that a significant number of people who get the virus don't need hospitalization for a while, and then they take a turn for the worse and need to get to the hospital quickly and get real support quickly. So that was one of the reasons why it's going to be quite close to UVM Medical Center. Does that seem to address the question, Olivia?
Those are all the questions I have for members of the media.
Okay, great. Thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in all week. We will be back again next week. And I guess my final, again, thank you to Burlington for how hard everybody is working, whether you're an essential worker, whether you work for the city and have a role to play as city government, or whether you are one of the overwhelming numbers of Burlingtonians that is staying home, following the governor's orders, doing everything you can to slow the spread of the virus. We should close this week knowing that the curve is flattened, that we are succeeding with our efforts. It is a challenging time, but we are getting through it. And another week is in the books. We'll be back again here on Monday and continue to communicate about how we will get through next week and then the one after that. Thank you all. See you soon.